All right. Welcome. Another episode of the Do's and Don'ts in the Workplace. I'm Ryan, that's Todd. How's everybody doing? Playing with a new song there. We'll kill that. Today's title, Don't Show Up Light. Todd, can I tell a quick story?
Please.
So, long time ago, I was a director in a very large company, like one of those 30,000 people kind of companies where lots of projects and lots of stuff going on. And part of the director role in that company was to be able to give your vice president a thorough overview of all the projects in flight. So knowing where things were at, how things were going, if he had any questions or if she had any questions, your job was to sit there and survive. So it was death by 1,000 questions. If there were problem areas that you knew they were interested in, you had better have prepared. And I went into one of these meetings, and it was always with your peers. And so your peers were allowed to dig and ask questions too. And so this was a very competitive space, right? So if people smelled a little weakness, they might ask or take a quick jabbing question. And that was actually encouraged, right? So a lot of the VP and leadership culture was competitive in nature, and you basically didn't want to get caught. And during one of these meetings, my boss, the VP, asked a question that I could not answer cleanly. I gave one of those answers where it sounded like I was asking a question instead of making a statement, and he smelled blood immediately and just went for the kill and asked question after question after question. And finally, he's like, I'm going to let you off the hook here, but you're going to stick around after. We've got to sort this out. Now, that project that he was quizzing me on had 0 problems in it. There was an area of it that I had not prepped. I didn't have all of the documentation with me. And I found myself death by 1,000 questions. My peers kind of took a few extra jabs in there. And after the meeting, they left, I stayed, and I was very clearly angry and just kind of frustrated. And he's like, and he's sitting there going, what's wrong? He's like, why are you upset? And I'm like, I just got brutalized on a project that's probably one of the best in your portfolio. He goes, oh yeah, I'm not mad. He's like, you cannot come in here and show up light. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you have to be able to answer these questions. Like, you have to be able to defend your portfolio. And if you can't defend it, deflect it. He's like, he's like, this is a competitive space, not because I enjoy watching you guys in like the gladiatorial arena, right? This isn't Rome. I'm not trying to get you guys to fight each other like lions. I want you prepared so that when you're sitting in a room full of VPs or board of directors, you can either answer or deflect and not get killed, because it's worse up there. And so and that phrase, don't come in light, it always reminds me, as soon as he said it, I even thought of this. I'm a Sopranos fan. And so when Tony goes into Junior's diner and kind of confronts him, Junior's upset. He was insulted that Tony wasn't even armed with a weapon. And so he said, little nephew, the next time you come here, don't come light or come packing, or don't come at all. He's like, don't come in here light. And I always just thought, man, what a good
Sopranos.
I mean, it was just a great parallel, but and it was a good education from this VP. He was trying to get us ready for more difficult conversations. But also teaching us be prepared. And it was frustrating. It was irritating, but he was also right. If you're walking into a meeting and you know that the bar is high on the information you're to provide, you do the prep work. The standard's been set. The expectations are known. Do the work and make sure you can cover it. And on that day, I didn't cover my square. I didn't make sure that my piece of the portfolio was well represented. And I never made that mistake again, but it was definitely one of those lessons of you can't show up light, especially when you know that it is a very heavy meeting.
Yeah. There's a couple different angles here, just thinking through this and listening to your story. And I mean, I think this is just something that you experience in the office environment, another lesson that you learn. Because I can remember having meetings that I scheduled on the calendar to have conversations, whether it be a refinement meeting or like a meeting where I wanted to have some stakeholders and grab some opinions. And I wasn't prepared with any kind of agenda. I was racing from meeting to meeting and doing things, and showed up light when it came to a game plan for the meeting, because I think that's another aspect of it. Or come into a retrospective as a scrum master, not really having a game plan for how I was going to facilitate it. I think that there's showing up late and not being able to answer questions, but there's also showing up late without a plan. If you're the person that has the meeting on your calendar, that's exactly where you can get into spiral things. You can get into unexpected conversations, right? I think that you're almost in these kinds of situations. I think you're almost best just being completely transparent. Maybe that's not the right word about it. Just being open about it. I think that's probably the better word. And saying, listen, I'm coming in here from a very hot situation. My intent was to schedule this, and this was the outcome of it, but I'm unprepared for it. We can kind of loosely talk about it, or if it's on my calendar and I can, just cancel it and reschedule and just be, I am not able to have been prepared for this. I'd almost rather cancel in a lot of circumstances than have it turn into one of those meetings that just goes in a million different directions that you're unprepared for because you didn't come up with a good plan. So I'm talking it kind of as the like person that puts a meeting on a calendar. You better have an agenda. You better have a clear outcome for what you want to have happen in that meeting. Because showing up late can be showing up without enough of an agenda too, not just the data and things like that. There's a lot of different angles I think we could look at this showing up late thing.
Oh, I think there's a ton of angles, right? So I'm sure people have noticed in the more recent videos, we're full on in Pop Warner football now. And so showing up light also means like you've got to have a practice plan for every practice, and you've got to have a script for every game, and you've got to have, we watch on a tool called Huddle a bunch of video of our opponent, and we watch the recordings of our practices, and we're constantly preparing so that by the time we get to the game, it's automatic. Right? We know the plan. I know the first 10 plays I'm going to call on offense. I know who I'm trying to get the ball to. I know who their top dogs are on defense and offense, on who to avoid and who to go after. And a lot of other coaches will say, this is overkill and you guys are over prepared. And I would say last year we went 8-0 and we averaged 40 points a game and held most teams to 0. So that prep, like if you're coming in light trying to wing it, even in an 11U football game, you're setting yourself up to lose. Like you have to have a plan. You have to do the prep work. You have to know what you're trying to achieve. You have to have the standards set. You have to have the goals set. It's almost like let me bring this back. I won't go into youth football too much. Again, evidence-based management, Todd. If I'm going into a director or vice president position today, that's the first thing I'm installing. Because when someone asks me a question about my team or our performance or our capabilities, I don't know. I'm making stuff up unless I have those dashboards built. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like I think going into a situation today, any kind of meeting, any kind of discussion, and not having EBM installed, you're going in light. I think it's kind of, to me, it would be a little scary.
Yeah, I would say show up heavy instead of light, right? I'd rather be over prepared than under prepared. Unprepared in a lot of these circumstances is not good. So I also think that when there's big things like that, like some of the really big events, some of those can be very career changing. And so showing up, having thought of the angles, having spent a little bit of time of it, maybe think about what a surprise you could expect in there. I think the same is true for product owners as they approach a sprint review, right? If we're going to put a little bit of scrum into this, think about angles, think about what could happen, think about an unexpected question that you might have that could creep in from the sprint review before or a meeting that you have with stakeholders. Show up heavy.
Think about the trust that builds. We talked about trust in the last episode about surprise, but trust, like if you show up well prepared and you've got 3 options for the most likely things to come up, and you actually have the ability to show your preparation and show that you've put considerable thought into what we're doing. And especially in a sprint review, it's like, look, here's the next upcoming product goal. Here's 3 potential sprint goals based off of feedback from these 10 stakeholders. Here's some of the thinking behind it. Here's where I would like to go. I'd love your feedback on X, Y, Z. And by the way, here's 10 other options in the product backlog that support this. And just having that body of work built up. I'm not saying fluff, right? Don't just have nonsense like binders full of empty pages, but actually doing the deep work in order to demonstrate that you are thoroughly prepared and knowledgeable, the stakeholders are more at ease, right? This person is working like crazy to make sure that this product will be successful. And that actually changes the temperature of the room too. They're not as anxious. They're not asking, you don't get the death by 1,000 questions. You get far more interesting discussions when they trust you. And that was the other aspect that this vice president would talk to me about. It's like, if you come in light, they don't trust you. And now the meeting is 1,000 questions instead of 100 possibilities. And he's like, which would you rather talk about? And I go, well, of course I want to talk about the possibilities. And he said, well, then show up prepared. Don't come in here light again. And it was a very good lesson.
Yeah. Show up heavy. I'm going to stick by that. I think that's my counter to this question. Don't show up light, show up heavy.
I like it. We hope you like it too. If you do like it, be sure to like and subscribe. Never miss an episode of Agile for Humans. This Do and Don't series will continue, but let us know what you think and what other topics. And have you seen this stuff before? And if so, tell us your story in the comments. And we'd love to know more about what you think in this area, and especially some do's and don'ts you've learned along the way. So be sure to leave those in the comments. We'll try to get to each and every one of those in future episodes. Be sure to check out the videos that are going to pop up. The algorithm likes them, and it thinks you will too. For Todd, I'm Ryan. Hey, let's get some really good things going on in the workplace, whether remote or in person. These ideas can help. We'll see you next time.